Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
Hello, I'm Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tamara.
Hi.
How's it going? Here we are in the studio.
Good. Yes.
And I'm very excited to have Kevin Pollak here today to talk to him.
Yes.
Done a number of films with Kevin.
More than 3, I hear.
More than 3. He's also directed me in a film.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this is going to be, it's always fun when you're talking to your friends.
I know. I love it when you bring your friends in because I feel like I'm sitting at a dinner table and like eavesdropping on you guys. Like I'm sitting at the next table eavesdropping, and I love that.
That was my favorite. That's my childhood thing of sitting at the table watching movie stars talk. You know.
And we're doing it right here in real life.
I know. I love it. Do you still get starstruck? I'm totally starstruck.
I know that about you, but yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I remember being a cast on a television show, and Melanie Griffith was in the show, and we were doing the pre-read, you know, and I'd met her, you know, on a film set through a friend, Penelope Ann Miller, who we need to get on this film, on this show.
Yeah.
But and I said, oh God, it's Melanie Griffith. Like, you know, and of course I wasn't going to bother. She's getting her food. She sits down and everything, and I'm sitting there.
Why is it always when people have food in their hands that you approach?
Because
that seems like a theme. It seems like a thread.
That's
it might be your tactic.
But
Anyway.
I was like, well, maybe if I, you know, walk by her, and then she turns around. She goes, Illeana, aren't you going to say hi? I said, oh, hi,
Perfect.
Melanie. I go, oh, I didn't know if you'd remember me. I always everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but I get totally starstruck. I'm like, they're not going to remember me.
Right, but so that has happened to you several times where, like,
Absolutely.
well, like the story in the book that I love is
Gotta
when
get him
Mike
on.
Nichols.
Oh,
Mike Nichols.
Yes.
You know, so you have there's a
My
whole story.
album.
We don't have to tell the whole thing, but
Yes.
yeah, and then you find out you're dying to meet him, right?
Yes, he was showing The Graduate, and I was like, what an opportunity. I was working with director Glenn Gordon Caron, who we also have to get on here, director of Picture Perfect. And we went to see this screening. I said, I said, he's going to be there talking about The Graduate. I mean, geez, you know, what insights. And then I brought my album, Nichols in May, and we were standing in the line afterwards, you know, and Glenn goes, Jesus, only you could get away with that, Illeana. I was like, what? You gave him to sign it. So, like, I handed over the thing to sign, and then he said some very complimentary things about me and my acting. I was in shock.
Right, because he was excited to meet you.
Yeah, that's what's...
Can I say something?
This is John, one of our
Yes.
producers on the show.
Okay, so you said that you were worried that you might not remember me. You may be many things. Forgettable is not one of them.
Thank you. That is very true and very accurate.
Oh, God.
Not possible.
I remember was along those lines, because I was a star. You know, my roommate, who's now very famous many years ago, his name is Stephen Rogers, but we were roommates back in the day. And I would always say this to people. I was like, oh, we followed him. And they were like, what does that mean, you followed him? I was like...
Not like on Twitter. No.
I was like, yeah, James Mason. We was walking down the street. So we were like, let's follow him. You know, we're unemployed actors. Like, let's see what he does. You know, so we would...
That's why you need to employ actors, because they're no good when they're...
Right? When they are
we would
unoccupied.
just follow them. But, I forgot what I was going to say. Something about the...
James Mason.
Oh, yeah, so I always, you know, would be following people, would see Michael Caine, like, let's follow him, you know, because they'd be in New York doing a film. And I was on Seinfeld. I did the last 10 episodes, and I played a kooky character.
Really? You played a kooky character?
Which was a crazy story in itself, because Jerry Seinfeld kept coming in. They kept making me one shade darker of orange, because I play a girl who has too much tan.
Oh, tan, right.
And Jerry would come on, and he'd go, it looks good. I was like, what are you doing? I look insane. He'd go, I don't know, it's not orange enough. And then he'd leave. And then I was like, I kept coming in like, Jerry, what do you think? He's like, I don't know, you look good. So anyway, I did the show. So what? You know, wonderful experience, incredible experience. And I'm back in New York, and it was just one of these jokes, like wherever I went, like if I went to the gym, oh, Jerry Seinfeld's at my gym. So he's like, hey, hi. Like, I'm not following. I am not
The
following.
one time you weren't following.
Yes. The one time I wasn't. I'd go to a diner, like he's there with Colin Quinn. Hey, Illeana. I'm like, I'm not like a character in your show.
Maybe he was following you.
Ooh.
Did you ever think of that?
Ooh, could be.
It could be.
You wanted some more orange.
But I would.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I always. But yes, I'm so. Jeez. Starstruck.
So I was thinking about something.
Yes. What were you
Kevin
thinking?
Pollak is
Wonderful
one
actor.
of those actors who has
Yeah.
very successfully gone from stand-up comedy, that was where he began his career,
Yes.
into being an actor, and does comedic roles as well as serious dramas, Usual Suspects and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also did a little bit of stand-up
Yes.
and are very well known for comedic roles, but then also very, strong dramatic roles.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about the difference in your process in preparing for roles like that? Or is there a difference between doing a comedic role versus a dramatic role?
There's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk to Kevin about this too. I've worked with a lot of comedians, Jay Moore, Drew Carey, Gary Shandling, Kevin. And the issue that you always have to work with, they're used to working alone. You're just trying to make people laugh. Right. And so it's very hard, first of all, when you're working opposite someone, to get them to trust you to work off of you, because they're trying to do their own funny things. And that's what I find is the challenge, working off of them. For me, when I'm, the hardest thing is to not try to be funny. Is just to play the inherent drama of the scene. And one of the best teachers of this was Gary Shandling. You're going into that show, the Larry Sanders Show, and of course it's like, I want to be funny because this is really funny. And he wanted everything to be very, very dramatic. You never tried to make anything funny. You just tried to make it as truthful as possible. And then later on, you play the truthfulness of the scene. And then that became very, very funny. So but if you have a very strong conflict, on that, it was, he wants, we're in a relationship and he doesn't think I'm going to be a very good guest on his show. Well, that's just like great. Nice. And interestingly enough, with that part, originally I was supposed to be a bad guest, but then I said, it's not going to work because I don't think I'd be a bad guest, but I would be too chatty Cathy a guest. I said, so what, like, let's make her that like you can't keep her on point. And so that became very truthful, but the more we played with it, the funnier it got. But there is nothing like when I did the show Action, which was just a straight up, like, balls to the wall comedy. I would be laughing in the car on the way to set. I could not. It was like a joy. It was, if I could only do comedies for the rest of my life that were like that,
right?
Because all you're doing is thinking about, how is this going to be funny? How is this going to be funnier? And I like that.
I think that was too ahead of its time.
It was. That's what everybody sort of says.
Yeah.
Or maybe the timing of it wasn't right. I mean, it was considered like very raw and raucous and
It was.
It
was.
And then later on, Entourage sort of covered the same territory, but again, more in a dramatic way. And we were, again, maybe that was the issue. Maybe we were too funny, or, maybe we didn't find the balance of the comedy and the pathos. Again, very different than the Gary Shandling Show, which is, my sweet spot of like Albert Brooks, Elaine May,
Right.
uncomfortable comedy.
Right, exactly.
That is my absolute go-to sweet spot.
So how people say, comedy is hard. Mm-hmm. So with someone who has, begun their career and really established themselves as a comedian, do you think it's easier for a comedian or a comedic actor to do dramatic roles versus a dramatic actor to do comedic roles? I mean, because that's what they say, that comedy is so hard.
I mean, it depends on the actor, but it does seem traditionally that comedians make incredible dramatic actors.
You know, when I was doing sketch comedy a million years ago, we talked about how comedy is truth and pain, right? Because when the comedian's up there doing their bit, they're connecting their painful experiences with yours, and you're all laughing about them because you can relate,
right?
And you know that. So I mean, I think that's kind of one of the elements is the pain of it.
Well, yeah, and a great example of that is Jackie Gleason in The Honeymooners, and then Jackie Gleason in a movie called The Hustler, is it, with Paul Newman?
Yeah.
I mean, my God, is he good? My God, he's so. And The Honeymooners again is just. It's just a lesson in acting, even though it's incredibly funny. But it's always like the dream is just out of reach. The dream is just out of reach, and that's a great objective to have in a scene. But I think that they always talk about comedians having this sort of deep reservoir of pain.
Yeah.
That makes that there's got to be some reason that makes them want to be funny. And usually that is, some sort of terrible experience. Where you get into trouble, I guess, is when you get these movies, like Jerry Lewis, where he tries to be a straight up, like, this is, now I'm going to take away all the comedy and I'm going to do, my Holocaust movie. And then it's just this, like, it's just too shocking, maybe, for an audience.
From the audience's perception, you mean?
I think that I would find that, where it works is, again, you have, like, if they come on as a supporting role. I mean, I'm thinking of another example is Albert Brooks has again, I mean, when you think of in like broadcast news, just. And Albert Brooks had he just rested on his laurels as a stand-up comic. He's one of the great stand-up comics of all time. But then broadcast news, it's like, you can't stop thinking about it. It's just indelible of what he brought to that film. And he probably ad-libbed, and he probably brought some comedy, but maybe trusted Jim Brooks, to bring out the best in him. Jerry Lewis, people talk about when he worked with Frank Tashlin versus when he was directing himself. And he is, in my opinion, if you look at Cinderfella and then you look at Nutty Professor, just for me personally, I prefer Cinderfella. It just has a little bit more panache.
And that was directed by
Frank Tashlin.
Got it.
Versus the Nutty Professor, in which he did everything. He's the complete auteur.
Right.
So I don't know. If a comedian trusts a director, I think that's when you really can get like this incredible performance. There was a famous television show actually called The Comedians that John Frankenheimer did, early television, and John Frankenheimer said that Mickey Rooney was the greatest actor he ever worked with, and he based this on directing him in a show about a stand-up comic called The Comedians, and it's chilling. He plays just like a horrible human being.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
The Comedians.
Interesting. Well, speaking of comedians,
I love comedians.
I think we should bring in Kevin.
Let's bring in Kevin Pollock. My friend Kevin Pollock. You may know him from his numerous starring roles in films such as A Few Good Men, The Usual Suspects, of course, his stand-up, many, many films. He was named by Comedy Central as one of the top 100 comedians of all time. I agree. And his podcast, Chat Show, or God, I'm Tired. Let's just welcome Kevin Pollock. Wait, I'm trying to, I just did.
Or God, I'm Tired?
Or God, I'm Tired.
No. See what happens when you don't read my cards before?
I ruined it. It was
if that
like,
was an editorial on me, I must be tired.
No, she was
like
listing and listing all of your many accomplishments.
Oh,
Yes.
I see.
And after listing them,
Do you have award-winning director in there? Because that's new.
Award-winning director. I was going to get to that.
It's not important. The film that
what do you
Illeana,
mean it's not important?
the film that Illeana is brilliant in,
Yes. Yes.
now available in select cities and video on demand,
Late.
and drops on Netflix. I think this Sunday. I've been threatened.
Wow.
What's
late
the
bloomer.
date?
The
Do you know
late
what the date is?
bloomer.
November 6th.
Oh, nice.
Had its world premiere at the San Diego International Film Festival, where we won Best Comedy. I'm just saying it happened.
Yes. You are, I mean, again, you're.
Well, so
You are
Kevin Pollak going on there.
You're the perfect example of in show business. You just have to do it all, right?
You just have to not stop, slow down, diversifying. I should mention for your listeners and potential viewers,
Yes.
more listeners on this note, that my voice
Oh yes.
is not of a normal
Yes.
octave or tenor.
I think
Yes.
that sounds pretty sexy.
I
to
was
me.
yelling and
Just saying.
screaming. Thank you, Mr. President. I was yelling and screaming. I hope it's Ms. President.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
At the Cubs win
Oh.
last night with 2 lifelong Cubs fan over the house in Sam Levine and Graham Elwood, and it was insane.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I saw the video of them winning, and it's
yeah.
highly emotional. And
Jamie-
last night was emotional.
Jamie, the head writer, my smarter, better half of the chat show, shot video, and you can see the TV in the background. I posted it to Instagram and Twitter if people want to check it out. But you can see on the TV in the background, Rizzo on first had just caught the last out, and hadn't. You see him in the video throw his
know.
glove up in the air.
Yes.
That's how quickly she was on the scene with the video. Clearly, she was ready. Like, the ground ball was hit, and she lifted up her phone thinking, as did Bryant, as he's laughing while gloving the last out. This is actually happening. It's finally over.
Yeah.
Let's get back to me, though.
Yes.
So,
Up
Yes,
and down, but
let's.
it was
So
it
my
was an
voice is not-
emotional high. You've got
yeah,
Sundance voice.
yelling and screaming. I've
You
got
have
Sundance voice. I do have Sundance. And Vegas voice, too.
That's right, Vegas voice. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Well, we were talking before you got here.
I once dated a girl that had a sort of lower register, forgive me for interrupting,
Yeah.
sexy voice.
Uh-huh.
And I remember dating her and thinking, is this going to age well?
Oh,
Because, you know, we were starting to get serious. And you think about everything,
yeah.
not to be incredibly trite. But
be-
I remember thinking, this smoky voice
Elaine-
is so sexy, but 17 years in,
Elaine Stritch.
am I going to want to strangle her at one night while she sleeps?
Isn't that true of any little personality?
But a
quirk
voice is
of
just constant.
That's true.
It's a little more than
That's it. When you're in a
I don't like it when she
relationship-
clips her nails in front of me. You know, it's a little more.
There's one of those there's a play that haunted me. I think it's like Lovers and Other Strangers, where they go, her wrists were too thin. And
That's
they-
funny. That's a
yes.
funny. I have too much crap. I just realized. I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
I'm
have-
dirtying up your beautiful counter.
The
Lucite is so important.
did you did you act before you did stand up, or did you start with stand up and transition into acting?
I definitely did stand up first. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I was lip syncing a comedy album. First for myself, then caught by my mother doing it, literally.
Man,
and
there
then,
are worse things your mom can catch you at.
No, no. As it turns, and I used the word "caught" for that reason, because it was as horrific as if she'd caught me doing other things, and because I was just playing.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was lip syncing. That wasn't a term that was in my brain. I was just obsessed with this comedy album, and rushed home from school to sit in front of the stereo hi-fi, which was a 7-foot wide piece of furniture. Let's compare that to what people listen to music on now.
Yes.
So this storyteller coming out of the furniture was what I was obsessed with. So I would sit in front of him. And then eventually I just wanted to play. There was no interactive games because I'm 103. So I would stand in front of the furniture and pretend I was the person telling these stories. And didn't think I invented lip syncing. I was just playing.
Yeah.
And my mom came home early one day from work and caught me.
Uh-huh.
And her first response after laughing was, "You're doing that for the Zookers at Passover."
Aw.
Yeah. And that was my first stage. And then I did that all through school.
Wait,
That is
just one
great
second. Wait, so-
reinforcement.
right. Why was that a horrific incident?
I was just doing it for me.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't thinking in terms of performing
Okay.
Yeah.
it
Okay.
ever. This
Yeah.
was playing.
It was yeah, okay.
And it was so vulnerable, and I hadn't even thought of how vulnerable I must have been, because I was in the zone. Like, he cleared his throat,
Yeah.
I cleared my throat, and it was all so precise.
Ah.
Yeah, and I was also fantasizing that I
Yeah.
was the one doing this performance. I was in front of thousands of people, because you could hear the laughter on the album, and it was me. So that's what I felt
Wow.
like. I was
Got
so
it.
caught.
That's amazing. No, but you're lucky.
She also caught me losing my virginity.
Oh, cut it
Oh,
out.
fantastic.
No.
Yes.
That's traumatic.
That is.
I was,
Oh, God.
let's just say it, inside Julie Lewis when I heard the front door of the house open.
Oh, God.
And I was separated and my hand on the doorknob within 4 seconds. And sure enough, since my door was never closed, I hear her come down the hall and knocks on the door.
Oh, no.
Busy in here. So Mom, I guess I'm just realizing now on your show, has caught me at a few very crucial moments in my life.
That is key. I mean,
Twice.
We're going to get to my first question, which is the movie question. But the first three, childhood to me is everything. Everything about writing, more so like writing and directing than I think acting. Writing and directing to me is like redirecting the same movie again and again and again in your childhood and trying to kind of make sense, I think, of certain events or certain key events. That's what I always think. So it's like if your mom caught you at key, you could trail that.
I've never put those moments into any of my scripts. That's interesting because it's in there, clearly.
Happy to help.
Start writing right now. So let's start with my first question. Is I'm fascinated by this. What was the first movie you saw, and who took you to it?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that at my advanced years I remembered, so I had to Google films of 1963 because I was about 6. I knew that, and instantly when I saw the one sheets that came up on my phone, I knew instantly there were 2. It's Mad, 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 Mad World and Bye Bye Birdie. And Bye Bye Birdie.
That's you. See?
Yes.
I have this theory. This is my crazy, crazy theory. I'm going to patent it. TED Talk. Done.
Fantastic.
There is some bizarre connection.
Yeah.
Because when you say...
It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, it's a group of comedians who are not actors that are in a movie.
Yeah, and then Bye Bye Birdie, which is Dick Van Dyke and kind of goofy and colorful, and effervescent.
Yeah, Paul Lynde, who I would later be one of the early impersonations that I would do.
Oh.
Sure.
Do people still? I mean, that was
There's not a big outcry for
Oh.
Paul Lynde impression.
Were you like me, where they're like, there was that moment, Paul Lynde is gay? Like, we
almost like Liberace, because it just wasn't a conversation that even came up. It wasn't a concern, as it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't then. And
your funny uncle.
but I don't know, because I haven't interviewed or talked to anyone about, as an adult, as a 40-year-old in the 60s, did it ever cross your mind? Because certainly as a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, it's not even in the vernacular. But I was still pretty young when it was even the topic was broached. I don't remember it registering as any sort of sense of surprise.
Yeah.
Or even meaningful.
Yeah. They just seemed like
because they were just who they were.
Right. They
were so well defined. There's a very famous Paul Lynde on the plane, the drunk on the plane.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
no, tell me.
I don't think it's appropriate for your show, but
you could
be
probably
the judge.
Google it. I referenced it in Easy to Assemble.
Oh, well, there you go. So yeah, and
famous story.
And who cares? So, anyways, yeah. So it's a Mad, 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 Mad World,
which is I love this film, and I saw this film in 70 millimeter at the TCM Film Festival. Again, one of the great experiences to see that movie. It's great. Mickey Rooney was still alive. He made an appearance at the end, sort of waved. He and Marvin Kaplan. It was like barely.
Mickey Rooney was still alive
when she saw the screening.
Oh, at the screening.
At the screening.
I was going to say, he was alive 10 years ago.
But to see that movie on the big screen, and every comedian in the universe is in that film.
And as a child, that's what I saw it on as well.
Yeah.
I saw it on 70 millimeter giant.
So were you just completely enchanted by it? Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I signed my first autograph when I was 6 for a wholly different reason.
Oh, really?
But I was already tapped into people running around being funny and hammy, which I was. Mm-hmm. Should I tell that?
Yeah.
So
sure.
It's all in. I love this book. It's all in my book, How I Slept My Way to the Middle,
which inspired me to write my book.
Yeah.
It's all based on
all
Kevin.
Connected.
Whatever Kevin does.
Yeah, I don't know why Kevin Bacon needs 6 degrees. I'll get you anywhere in 3.
Oh,
right.
Name anyone. Why do we need 6 degrees?
That is.
I was challenged with Charlie Chaplin and I got the person there.
No,
I don't need.
Between Kevin knows
It's absurd. Well, it's all based on one handshake away, right?
Yeah.
So I'm technically one handshake away from every single person that Warren Beatty's worked with, Jack Nicholson's worked with. You know what I mean? And then I'm
Biggies.
De Niro. I'm two handshakes away from everyone. That they,
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. So
Yeah, you've got covered.
You know, it's ridiculous. You need 2 degrees also, by the way. So my cousin Terry Zucker, back to the Zuckers.
Yes.
They were big influences on me. My cousin Randy Zucker, her older brother, has been my bookie all these years.
Wow.
30 years ago, I started betting on sports or more. And I was talking to him about it because he had taught me poker when I was probably 10 also, which is a huge part of my life to this day.
My buddy Murray plays poker with you on occasion.
Oh, yes, he does.
Murray Valeriano.
Yeah.
Hey, Murray.
Hey, Murray. So Terry Zucker, I was 6. She was about 13. Took me to see the Dave Clark 5. I'd memorized their first album. They were neck and neck with the Beatles in 1964.
Yeah.
It was not clear yet who would become...
Prevail.
Yeah.
That's how huge they were, just as a reference point. So she takes me to the Dave Clark 5. Sonny and Cher, the opening act. Fur vest, bangs. The opening act. Right?
Right.
So it's after the show, my cousin says, there's a side stage door, and if we wait there, we can get their autograph. Great. So we go, and it's me, my cousin Terry, and 50 other 13-year-old girls like my cousin Terry. So we're waiting at the side door. There's steps leading up to a platform and a door. And we're waiting, and all the girls are excited. I'm excited. I don't know, 45 minutes. We're still waiting. And people are starting to get a little nervous and impatient. And my cousin, Lord knows why, says, Kevin, you know their songs. Why don't you go up the steps? And I don't even think she finished the sentence. And I was up the steps on the platform. Catch us if you can. Ooh. I'm singing all the songs. Well, bless these 13-year-old girls' hearts. They came to get someone's autograph.
Aww.
So a few of them handed up their autograph book. I'm 6. I don't know how to write. No cursive. I'm printing, Kevin.
I love it. Does any of these still exist?
Autographs?
Yeah.
If you're out there and you have one of those autographs
Maybe
Come
we
in
could,
handy.
from 1964.
sell one in the garage sale.
See, now I think
I would pay.
I think that part
Right.
of your popularity in terms of films is that ability to translate. I'm obsessed with old. I had Ed Begley on. We were talking about the role that his father occupied in films, which no longer exists.
Yeah.
That there was always like, we need an everyman.
Right.
We need someone to express the thoughts of the Joe who comes, goes to work, and that is sort of disappearing. And I always thought
And yet here I am. Why do you think it's disappearing? Because that's literally my job as an actor, as you've just described it.
I don't know. I grew up, I was very influenced by, I spent a lot of time in Queens with my Italian grandparents. My grandmother worked in a department store.
Right.
My grandfather was a steam fitter. But, on weekends, he drove a Porsche and they dressed up and we went out for Chinese food. And, it was like, that was the American dream.
Yeah.
That's what it was. You worked incredibly hard. You got your hands dirty. And then on the weekend, you dressed up, you went out. And I think that, again, in a movie that I really love you in is Avalon. I love that film.
Barry Levinson's masterpiece. There, I said it.
It's a great, great film. And again, it talks about that. Just a sweet spot for me.
Sure.
I didn't even live through it, but the idea of that's what it meant to be an American,
Well, it went through the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. It went through later decades.
Yeah, I mean,
In the end, we're watching TV with the TV trays.
Yeah.
No longer at the dining room table. Yeah, it really does go through that as well.
And that idea of family and the ethnic,
And the suburbs, what it originally was designed for.
Right.
Move out of the city and get a house for $1 and.
But I think that you have that quality as an actor and as a person.
Oh, go on.
To believe, no, it's to believe that you carry a gravitas. It's not easy. As you know, when you see a movie, you're like, I don't believe that person's from 1945. You know, like there's nothing that takes you out of a film.
Yes.
Than feeling like
I'm not buying it.
Well, there's just a certain carriage. I don't know whether it's, like you said, having uncles and aunts and hearing stories and knowing a cadence, knowing the difference between how an Irish guy talks, how a Jewish guy talks, how an Italian guy talks. You know, there's a certain cadence, I think, that that you need in these films.
Yeah.
And it's a couple of the films that you've been in, and A Few Good Men is the same thing. It's a large ensemble.
Well, that
cast.
character in Few Good Men was certainly written by the great Aaron Sorkin, who was just a puppy in '91 when we shot the thing.
Right.
He had a very successful Broadway play, but this was his first screenplay, and he hadn't become Shakespeare, first and foremost, in his own thoughts, certainly, but that character in A Few Good Men was written as the conscience of the story and needed kind of a so-called everyman, or certainly not, I mean, by design, not someone famous, you know, because the movie's just a little top-heavy with the famous, to the point where I showed up on
That's what I love about the film. When you catch it on television, you're like, oh, Jesus, Kevin Bacon's in this thing.
There's Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, you always
There's
forget.
J.T. Walsh.
Yes.
There's Christopher Guest. There's Noah Wiley.
Yeah, all right.
Talk about puppies.
Yes.
Wait, so you were saying you showed up on set and...
No.
No.
Showed up on set. Oh, just in terms of the Juggernaut talent. Yeah, I expected them to. I kept waiting the first couple of days in rehearsal for someone to come up and say, "We've made a horrible error." we meant Kevin Kline. Can you follow me?
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to get to how you got that part, but I want to talk about a fetish that I have in Avalon.
Oh.
Yeah, dinner table scenes are the bane of anyone's existence, as those of us who've shot them know. Oftentimes, it's about 2 a.m. I would, or it's
Thanksgiving.
hot, yeah, and you have a very, very famous dinner scene in that.
Thanksgiving, in particular.
Yeah.
Dinner, which was shot for 3 days.
Oh.
And yeah, I go into detail about it in the book, but yes, the true rookie nature of that was the first on location movie for me. Shot in Baltimore, Barry Levinson's favorite. So I packed as if I were moving to Baltimore.
Well, you probably were.
Well, but I've since learned
Yeah.
you're allowed to wash your clothing while working on a film. You don't need to bring 3 months worth of clothing.
Love that.
That's what I mean by packed to move.
Yes.
That's adorable.
Well, it's embarrassing. And also going in the production office and saying, is it possible to get a stamp? I mean, you're on location in a production office. You can get anything from a stamp to someone elected to someone killed. It's a production office. They can handle everything. So all those things. But the other thing was first time eating in a movie. So, unfortunately for me, it wasn't 2 a.m. It was breakfast time.
Yeah.
And I sat down at the first shot, and I was starving. So I ate Thanksgiving dinner from a position of someone who was hungry,
Yes.
and then had to match that involvement with food for 3 days.
Yes.
Wow. And now all I see in movies is people just cutting and moving
but I
food
hate
around
that.
the plate.
But I hate that.
Right.
Jack Nicholson is the greatest food eater
Yes.
in cinema.
And,
Watch him devour a bowl of pasta in Preetzi's honor. Sits down to a table, puts a handkerchief or a napkin in his shirt, and goes to town. Also, he devours, I think, 2 slices of pizza in heartburn. Watch him eat in films. You will see a guy who is either spitting in a bucket or just doesn't care.
Okay, I'm going to bring up another person who loves to eat on camera. I don't know what it is. Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty, if you watch Reds, I'm like, and again, he's eating an apple and doing the scene. Like, I don't know.
I wonder if that's where maybe
But Bugsy,
Brad Pitt.
Oh, right, Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Brad Pitt likes to eat.
Well, in one of the Oceans
movies,
every
yeah,
scene he's in, he's clearly made a
Yeah.
decision. This character eats every time we see him. He's going to be eating.
Yeah.
Because once you get to the 7th time, you're like, oh, okay, this was a decision the actor made.
I wonder if it's the type of thing where you're on the set and you're eating an apple, you're eating an apple and you're like,
But it's such a commitment. And those
it's
guys know what they're
terrible.
doing.
It's a bad idea. When I talk about commitments, like when I did the movie Alive and
Sure.
we were in a plane crash and, my character ends up dying. So, we don't know what really happened to her, but the makeup guy said to me, what do you think about your crash? I was like, oh, give me something, and I wanted a huge gash.
Head wound.
And they're like, yeah, bite.
And then you become head wound
Why
Harry.
did I I kept trying to put my bangs
Yeah.
down. I was like, no, we don't need to do this.
I just started watching Goliath, the new Billy Bob Thornton,
How's
Maria
that?
Bello, and Bill Hurt. And Bill Hurt's character is disfigured from a fire.
Okay.
He's got scars on his face,
Yeah.
half of his face, including his ear. And I thought, well, see you at 4 a.m. every day. I did full head prosthetics for a movie once, and it was...
What was the movie?
Weirdly, it's my favorite comedic role that I have done to date, and 11 people have seen it. The movie has turned out horrible. It doesn't really work.
Uh-huh.
It's called The Whole 10 Yards, the sequel to The Whole 9 Yards.
Oh.
So
Maybe 12 people, because I've seen it.
Okay.
You've seen it?
We're up to
Yeah.
12.
I haven't seen it. I've seen the original.
Yeah. So,
Now I'm going to see it, though.
yeah. So I played the character in the first movie. I play Yanni Gogolak.
Yes. Very funny.
The Hungarian-born, Chicago-raised. So when I saw that in the stage description, I asked the director, Jonathan Lynn, British fella, did My Cousin Vinny, a bunch of great comedies. Jonathan, he's Hungarian-born, Chicago-raised. Which accent do you want? And he said, do you think you could do both? And I said, yeah, sure. So Yanni Gogolak, I thought, the Hungarian's easy. You're going to switch the V's and the W's. That's pretty much going to bring it home. But Chicago is a very hard consonant. And
Yeah.
So he ends up in the movie saying, my father was a great man, a man of vision and character. Yeah, so that was the combination, Hungarian and Chicago. Yeah.
Well, you're saying, I mean, that's...
So fun,
So
right?
why was that your favorite comedic role? Because of the accent?
So that character is killed so that Amanda Peet can show her terrific breasts.
Another reason to watch the film.
Yeah. And I'm on a Hawaiian beach vacationing, which is, for any young actor out there, you want to book a job, book a vacation. I'm on the beach, and I'm so aware of this that I have a cell phone with me. It rings. It's Bruce Willis, who's called maybe twice in my lifetime, so I know this is something. And he says, hey, man, we're doing the sequel to The Whole 9 Yards. That's amazing, Bruce. Is that I don't know if you remember, but my character got killed in the first one. So are you calling to rub it in? Because there ain't no money like sequel money. Also, I had so much fun, obviously, in the first one. He said, no, you're going to play Yanni's father, Laszlo Gogolak, in the sequel. So then I had to portray this 80-year-old
Yeah.
Hungarian mobster. So I went with the shock of white hair and the big Lou Wasserman glasses.
Ah.
And I had the time of my life.
Yeah.
But it meant 3:30, 3:45 a.m. in the makeup.
Yeah.
And the guy, Wesley, so brilliant, had just come off doing Beautiful Mind, where they were nominated for an Oscar for makeup for his aging and that. Anyways, loved. So I got to play this ridiculous character, Laszlo Gogolak, who talked like this. And I got to stretch out all these words and make them ridiculous. And it was just so much fun. It was crazy ridiculous. I was playing a bit of like a cartoon, like
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny came to mind, and keep it grounded somehow. Anyways, great fun.
So many times in movies, I feel like you're hired again. Have you ever been hired to just plug up like a faulty script, or like, well, Kevin's gonna just
A leaking ship?
Yeah, like Kevin, like the very casting of Kevin Pollock is gonna fix this thing. I feel like you and I have been in a couple movies together where we're like, listen, Kevin's gonna be in this thing.
We were plugs together, you and I.
A couple times.
Yeah.
But
I think we starred together in a film where we
did
human plugs.
Yes, we were. And the off-screen antics, at least I was laughing all the time.
That's true. We did have fun.
Which is another recurring theme in your book, is you're always ruining takes because everybody's laughing at things you're doing. But that's great to create that environment. I love that.
Yeah. And I found that helpful directing. If we're not having fun, what's the point of any of this?
Absolutely.
And to give you guys freedom to improvise. Everything you do in the movies improvise. It's just amazing.
I asked Dana Delaney this because I've never felt, whenever anybody's tried to give me a direction like getting in my head, it's not work with me. The only thing that works is create a great environment where you feel like, I'm just going to try this thing.
I think I learned that from Barry Levinson first on Avalon, again, one of my first real movies, because he was all about writing and casting. He didn't know anything about lenses. He didn't storyboard. He had one of the greatest cinematographers of all time in Alan Davio. But he would sit at the chair, Alan, he's not ready. He's not ready. It doesn't matter if he's lighting a football or a football stadium, it's 3 hours. And then he used them again right after that on Bugsy, so clearly he loved him.
Yeah.
But it was all about the writing and the casting. And I found that to be 100% true.
Yes.
I started to learn lenses, and I started to learn staging, and certainly working with the brilliant Scorsese.
Yes.
I learned that here's a guy who, his composition of every shot, if you put a graph over the monitor, he knows what's in every square of the graph.
He does.
Right?
Yes.
And then within that, I found the actors were free to do whatever they wanted. And there's a game the directors play, a lot of them, where they come over after a take and they say, what do you think? Is he more angry or less angry? And they know what they want. And they're faking that they care what you want. They're giving you a chance to get it right or wrong in whatever your answer is.
Yeah.
Like if they want it more angry.
Yeah.
And they come over and say less angry, more angry. And you say more angry. They go, great, let's try that. Knowing they got what they wanted. If you say less angry, they go, great, let's try it. Knowing they'll do it once and then come over and get you to do the more angry.
Yes.
Whereas Scorsese came over, and I remember him saying something like, "So what do you, great. What do you think? Is he more agitated or less?" And I felt like he was genuinely sincere and curious, and no matter what I said, we were going to try, and it just happened over and over again, and I felt like that you win if you can have a brilliant composition and let the players do whatever they want within it. Oh, my goodness. And I feel like Wes Anderson, he's all about composition. I don't know if his actors have as much freedom. I hope that they do, because I'm seeing something magical in those performances.
Yes.
And that sort of magic doesn't happen from rigid control, I don't think.
They have the right tone.
Yes, as long as they get the tone.
And with Marty's films, too, I find no one is like, what is what is that?
Right.
Like, when you watch Casino, it's enjoyable because you're like, oh, I know exactly what this is going to be fun. Oh, there's James Woods. This is going to be fun. Every person who comes on, it makes sense.
Jimmy Woods is going to be a historically great slime bucket.
Yeah.
That's good.
You see the crazy clothes and the 70s.
Yeah.
Now, you had a great story in your book about your audition for Casino, which I love. And
Not an audition.
No, for your meeting.
I only stress that because... I don't want to interrupt, though. You were going somewhere?
No. I was gonna say, and again, whatever you say, I'm gonna take credit for putting Kevin in the film because I would always, when I was with Marty, I would always be piping up about like, you gotta put Jimmy Woods in this movie. He's like, James Woods is never gonna do this tiny little part in my movie. I was like, is he? I'm like, you're Martin Scorsese. Like I would always have to say, you're Martin Scorsese. And I remember one time. I was like, you got to get Alec Guinness to be in, it was the movie that he did, The Age of Innocence. And Alec Guinness turned him down.
Oh!
He goes, I told you. Oh, everybody wants to work with Marty. And it was like, not Alec Guinness.
Yeah, but like 27 out of 28
But
did say yes.
Yes, but mainly everybody. And I said, you got to get this guy, Kevin. I recommended you, Pat Cooper, Don Rickles, and James Woods. There were other people I recommended that didn't get parts in the film. But
Tommy Smothers, Dickie.
I did not recommend that. That was.
Oh, he got that one.
Yeah, he got that on his.
Well, I'm on the set of The Usual Suspects, and my agent calls and says Martin Scorsese wants you to. We have an offer for you to be in his next movie, set in Las Vegas in the '70s, written by Nick Pileggi. He wrote Goodfellas. I said you should stop talking. Just yes.
You know why? Because I gave him stand-up tape of you, not even film work.
How funny.
That's what I would do. I'd say, you got to take a look at this guy. He's
How
good.
great.
Like, because we were like, I'd say, this guy,
That's bizarre because
Not
that's
film.
brilliant. Because, oh man, his performances are such that I wouldn't have seen that coming as what to watch. But you're right. You do get an essence of a performer on stage if they have that sort of connection.
We would, again, we would watch movies or, a documentary of this, and same thing with him. He'd say, yeah, take a look at this thing. He goes, I know it's great. Take a look at it. See if you see anything in this, and I'd always go, yeah, this guy's good, or this guy's good. Or
Yeah.
He was a student
Yes.
of finding obscure, cool performances. So then, therefore, when I was with him, then I would want to do the same thing.
Sure.
And some of these people sometimes would pop up in the films. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, so
Your film.
So imagine I'm on the set of The Usual Suspects, and I get a call. Scorsese wants you in his next movie, and it's definitely one of those you can take me now moments.
Yeah.
Quite the year, '94. So my agent, I said yes. My agent says, well, you've got to have a meeting with De Niro and a meeting with Scorsese. I said, you started this by saying offer. I'm happy to meet with them, of course. I'm happy to audition if that's what they need. But, and in '92, and If You Could Make came out, it was the crossover point for me from having to audition to getting offers. And once that happens, the agents settle into he's offer only, and it becomes a thing. And people respond to it, and they respect it. And I've been on the other side of it, producing or directing, and I know what that means. And you can say, well, we're making an offer contingent on a meeting. And so I said, well, what is the meeting specifically? Should I prepare some seat? No. You just have a little sit down with Robert De Niro and a little sit down with Marty. Just kind of a get to know you. And I become a little obsessed with, this is mine to blow, clearly.
Yeah.
The first meeting's with De Niro.
Which is the only one that matters.
As it turns out,
Yeah.
Marty's already sold. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been an offer.
Yeah,
Easy to assume.
I wrote about this in the book.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in a relationship with the director. I was like, Bob doesn't like you. That's...
Right. Well, it's presented to me as a double sit, separate, and it's mine to blow, right? And actors, we overthink everything. Of course,
no.
It's what we do.
What?
So I'm in face of Usual Suspects, which means 13-hour o'clock shadow and a goatee, not quite a beard, but damn near. And the character in the Casino for the Breen is Mr. Clean Cut. So I think, should I bring like an 8x10 and do a joke where I hold it up when the door opens and over my face and say, this is what I normally look like? And then I think, are you just stupid that De Niro's not going to understand what you might look like without facial hair? You idiot. Nah, I'll bring the picture. It'll be funny. So, he's at the Bel Air Hotel. I'm to meet in the lobby with Ellen Green, the casting... Ellen Lewis. Sorry, Ellen Green is an actress. Ellen Lewis, the casting director. I go into the lobby, and there's Rickles seated, also waiting for his sit. And we know each other a little through an introduction that happened at one point. But at any rate,
But you must have already been like.
Well, he's a hero of mine. Of course.
I mean, like, to me, and I've been in the, like, I'm okay, I'm not even in the movie. It's Robert Morse right next door. You know, like, even if I don't get the movie, sometimes you're like,
Yeah, yes. As a life experience. Because now Rickles is,
but
he's got a fellow Jew comic, so he's going after me on that level. And
but
then
the stakes, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, the stakes of, like, I have got to be in this movie now. Don Rickles is going to be in this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, again, these meetings are mine to blow.
Yeah.
So I decide, don't do anything. Be polite. He wants to make sure that you're not a sycophant. Oh, Mr. De Niro, I love you in this, I love you in that. None of that can happen.
Right.
Don't be too cool and seem disconnected or disingenuous. Just be yourself and be polite. Be a mensch. It's in you. Just do that. Don't try to make Bobby laugh. There's no need for that. Don't try to do anything. And then Rickles kind of works me up a little in the lobby, and he says, you know, I own this guy, De Niro. No, what do you mean? Well, I found out that when he was a kid, there were two types of peer groups in New York where he grew up that hung out on the corners. There was a doo-wop group where you stand around in a circle and you do songs to pass the time. And there was the put-down group where you stand around with guys in a circle and you mother this, you mother that. And Rickles, Mr. De Niro, shy, demure De Niro, was in a put-down group. And to those guys, Rickles was Lord and Savior. So Rickles is telling me this, that De Niro worships him because of that. And he knows this. He knows that he owns De Niro. So now all I want to see is Rickles go after De Niro on the set, which of course he eventually does. So he's working me up into that thing, and Ellen Lewis comes out and says, Kevin, you're up. So she walks me down this path to a bungalow at the Bel Air Hotel. It's all very old show business world. And I've dropped the idea of bringing the 8x10. It's just me and my scruffy look. And she says, you know, he's knock. So I knock on the door, and he opens it up, and he looks like what I imagine Howard Hughes looked like in the last 6 minutes of his life. He's got long, stringy hair down to the middle of his back. He's got a beard to his puppick. And he's let himself go for whatever reason. None of my business. I'm certainly not going to react to what I'm looking at. Right. But I'm really glad now I didn't bring the 8x10 to explain what I look like. Because, dear Lord, what's happening? I mean, he doesn't have Kleenex boxes on his feet for shoes, but there's a weird thing going down. No, I mean, it's just a guy who devoted himself to relaxing between gigs. He's just let himself go. So it's very dark in there. There's almost no light inside this bungalow. And he makes the De Niro face, and he says, come on in, have a seat. So I go in and I sit down, and he says, how you doing? I said, great, thank you. How are you? Good. You know, I just want to say hello, see how you doing. Can I get you anything? No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, so how you doing? Good. I'm very well, sir. Those same things are then said about 9 more times. Nothing else. Just, how you doing? Can I get you anything? Good. With pauses in between. That's pretty much it. And at the end of that happening 9 times with the same reaction, no, I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm okay. I don't need anything. All right, well, you know, I just want to say hello, meet you. Yes, absolutely. All right. And then he stands up and walks me back to the door. And I walk out, and there's Ellen Lewis walking me back to the lobby. And she says, how did it go? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. No. She said, can I guess what just happened? I said, sure. She said, he said very little. He said very little over and over again. And either you made a fool of yourself or you mind your P's and Q's, and it went well. I said almost nothing. She said, perfect. Then it couldn't have gone better.
Wow.
Yeah, and then when I met with Marty, it was the opposite of that. I said 2 words, and he spoke for 90 minutes. was an astonishing, like watching a cinema professor. In his trailer, he was shooting or doing camera tests on something.
Yeah.
And so we met in a trailer on a set of nothing. And he talked about the history of Las Vegas, and he talked about the book and how Nick was writing the book and how he stopped him and said, let's do the movie first. The book called The Enforcer was phenomenal. It eventually came out, of course. Mm-hmm. And every sentence, as you well know, is peppered with a film reference from 1927. And it was just a beautiful dissertation on Las Vegas and a man and a people and a place and a thing. And I just was rapt. And it was, this could all go to seed tomorrow. This 90 minutes, I'm good. If I don't, for some reason, get to do the film, like you said, this is. So for me, it didn't up the stakes. Like, well, I've got to get this. Now it's, you know what? I'm sated. Yeah. If I don't get to film this 90 minutes in audience, just the two of us, is going to do it for me. But it was very charming and delightful as well. And, my agent called and said, you're doing the movie.
Well, you were there. This was, too, and back in the day where you'd be, and I mentioned this on Goodfellas, tiny little part, but you'd be hired for, like, the picture, which never happens.
I'm in Vegas for 20 weeks. I'm in the movie 9 minutes. Yeah.
Is that true?
It is true.
That's.
If I had 7 days off somehow, they would occasionally, because there's only a 45-minute flight to L.A., they said, but we may need to bring you back on a moment's notice. But he's a guy who wakes up every morning, and no one knows what he wants to do, so you have to be ready to shoot every day.
Yeah. We may want Kevin walking in the back of this. Yeah. That's how he thinks, and that's how Goodfellas was.
Yeah, if they were shooting in Sharon Stone's house, De Niro's character's house, all that day for several days, they knew I wouldn't. But if they were anywhere near the casino, as you say, yes, I had to be ready to walk in the background or walk in the office and tap on the door and say whatever.
You worked with Alan King.
Yeah, I did have one of my favorite stories of Rickles going after De Niro involves Alan. We're all at a news conference.
Yes.
For me to present a mock-up check, big giant mock-up check for $67 million to build the Tangiers, and I hand it to. Alan King hands it to my character. And so there's a podium and dais tables on either side, and at those tables are me, Rickles, Alan King, and then De Niro. So while we're waiting for Bobby to join us on set, it's me, Alan King, and Rickles in our respective seats, waiting. And there's little microphones on the table. And there's 70 extras in front of us portraying the press. And Rickles has a captive audience. So while we're waiting, he's got the attention span of a small salad bar. So he grabs the mic and he's working what do you, people make $50 a day and bad fish off a truck? Good for you. Great life. And he's hammering them. And they're having the time of their lives. But he's just hammering and hammering and hammering. And he, not exaggerating, does 17 minutes of material on these 70 extras. And everyone's in hysterics. Except for Alan King, who's not even mildly amused. Because he's so competitive, I imagine. Yeah. And although we all eventually went out to dinner, I remember my then wife, Rickles, and his wife, and Alan King, the five of us got into a rent-a-car. I got to remember to tell that story. That's kind of funny. But so we're waiting. Rickles is hammering for 17 minutes, the extras. He finally sort of punches himself out. He's exhausted. And he leans back in his chair in silence for maybe 47 seconds before De Niro happens to arrive at that moment. Walks up on the stage where the dais tables are. Rickles sees him, lunges back at the microphone, and yells at the crowd, "All right, which one of you said he's gay? He's here now. Say it to his face." And De Niro...
I actually snorted on here.
Snorted.
De Niro, that's a victory for me.
Woo-hoo!
And De Niro stops, shoulders shaking, practically weeping with laughter. He's never been so happy. And does the De Niro face. And loved Rickles. Rickles was right. Yeah. Pesci, I like to tell the story, not so much. Pesci did not enjoy being attacked by Rickles.
This, to me, was one of the... and again, it's so great to be friends with someone simply so they will confirm showbiz lore.
As we remember it.
Yeah. And I would come visit on the set and go see Don Rickles' trailer. And again, I don't know what it is about old school comedians, but they don't wear the pants.
Nope.
So you go,
No.
you're like, he's got no pants on, Marty. I'm trying to look at this. Black socks. And then the eyes,
Wrinkle.
Hey, what is
From the old days, you had to work in a tux. You didn't want it to wrinkle. You hang everything up.
Yeah. And here's this man, so, he's, Mr. Warmth and all these things.
Sure.
And all he wants to talk to Marty about, why does this guy hate me?
Yeah.
Why does Joe Pesci, and truly
little guy.
being afraid that Joe Pesci is going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Physically hurt him in a
Well,
scene.
because one day on the set, Rickles goes after Pesci at the wedding scene in front of 200 extras this time and says that Joe is so short, he was going to ride him around the set like a Shetland pony. This was one of the first times, clearly, because Pesci did not appreciate it. And my voice is so off today, I don't want to do my Pesci impression. But he said, yeah, real funny. No, I get it. I'm a midget and you're a genius. Go fuck yourself. Can you swear on this show?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I just did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but meant it. Wasn't like jovial.
Yeah.
Like a
Suddenly-
shot fired back
Yeah.
comedically. It
Yeah.
was an intimidating tone. And then I like to mention in my act, and I think I said it in the book, I saw Pesci walking out to his trailer after that, and he was talking to himself. That Jew prick cocksucker, fuck him! Yeah. To himself.
Rickles.
And I said, hey, Joe, he was just kidding around. But, yeah, you were another one. The two of you, go fuck yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, again, it was like, I was all I ever heard about. It was this feud
Yep.
Wow.
between
The little guy. The
between
guy doesn't like him.
Don Rickles.
And people say to me, did you hang out with him? And I said, no, I left De Niro and Pesci. I said, I
Yeah.
left them alone. They know each other. They have history together. They love being together. So the few scenes I had when they were together,
Yeah.
now I'm not going to go and say, hey, guys, you getting something to eat later? I'm never going to be that guy.
What are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, I was like that with Nicholson on A Few Good Men. It started with rehearsal again, and my rehearsal minute one, the first 2 weeks, was me, Tom, and Demi. The three of us have all these scenes together. Tom Cruise, Demi Moore. And, for 2 weeks, I was treated like an equal from the get by these two giant movie stars. And so I got used to that, as weird as it is. And I tell stories in the act how, because Tom Cruise, one of the biggest stars in the world, is treating me like an equal, after 5-6 hours of that, the stand-up comedian in me comes out.
Right.
And I find myself giving shit to Tom Cruise, international movie star, because he's made the mistake of making me feel welcome. And he must pay the price. Yes. So I got used to that. But as soon as Nicholson, I was around him, you go in the morning, the day starts in the makeup and hair truck, you walk in the trailer, there's 7 barber chairs lined up. I'd walk in, he's sitting in one, I'd go to the other side and sit in the other and leave him alone. I just did not want to be one of those people bothering him, even though we're technically co-stars, and I'd been just trained by giant movie stars that we're all equal here.
Yes.
And when I eventually engaged with Jack, he was surprisingly goofy and easy to be around and had no airs of any kind. He was arguably the biggest goofball surprise. I thought in order to be cool to 6 generations, I'm not even sure how that math works, you'd have to be a little aloof, to have people talk about you rather than to you, right? He's Jack fucking Nicholson.
Yeah.
He shows up at the Oscars after they've started and gets seated in the front row wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to talk to him, right? And then he was the most gregarious goofball, like truly silly.
Right.
Like in that final moment where Tom comes in for the kill, I want the truth. When they're shooting Jack off camera, and the camera's Jack's POV, and Tom is coming in for the kill to the lens, and Jack's face is right next to the lens doing off camera. When Tom came in that first time for the kill, Nicholson was doing this. And for your listeners, he was making a goofy, ridiculous fucking face.
Yes.
in a very intense dramatic scene, a crescendo of the film.
Yes.
Uncle Jack is doing that. And then Tom stayed in it, finished the take, and then smacked him on the shoulder and said, "You fuck." And it was just that sort of set.
What do you, did you find De Niro is Mr. De Niro, Robert De Niro. He is not an easy actor to work off of. Did you find that? I found that. I found my way in.
I never found my way in. I never found myself comfortable to have a conversation. He said one thing to me the entire experience that was an effort to make me laugh, and that was the greatest moment of the experience, because he chose to try to be funny. And it was just a little comment, but it was, as a comedian, you know what that meant. Right. There was a design. There was a blueprint.
Oh, I could just see it. And because, again, the big surprise for me was that he was like a Three Stooges fan. And, you know.
I wish I'd had that opportunity to talk about
He loved comedy. He loved doing like Abbott Costello and...
The King of Comedy, to me, his performance in that is...
I know, it's my favorite.
It's one of the all-time greatest acting clinics also, in terms of how to play crazy.
Do you have a favorite
without
scene?
being glib? My problem with people who play crazy is that glib comes through. Robin Williams was a friend and a mentor, starting out in his comedy in San Francisco. But when he's in The Fisher King, playing a crazy person, it's brilliant and dramatically exceptional. And then later on in the film, his character is being glib. And that's the director's fault. It's not his.
Right.
But he can't go back to being, whoa, thank you very much. I don't mean
Yeah.
You know, you can't be glib. You can't be self-aware if you're truly crazy. You can't be.
But even Good Morning Vietnam suffers from that.
But that guy's not crazy.
Yeah.
My issue is with...
suffers in... He suddenly becomes Robin Williams.
Yes.
For
but that one at least was... We got Robin Williams. Let's make this guy who wants to be a DJ in the morning of Vietnam, who's clearly suffering from "Hey, look at me" disease, as all comedians do. Whereas the crazy guy, cowering in the middle of the street because there's a fire-breathing horse coming his way, because he's envisioning that through his insanity, can't also be 3 scenes later at the dining table going, "Whoa, are you done with the tomato soup?" You know, it can't be that. So... yeah, so De Niro's brilliant and amazing, and I didn't get a chance at all to have any discussion. I didn't know until this moment that he was such a fan of the Three Stooges. I mean, you had told me before, so I guess I heard that from you only.
But again, very hard to find a way in.
Yeah.
And as I said, you got to do your own thing, otherwise, you know, you get locked into it. And again, working with somebody like Jack Nicholson too, I would see. Did you find that he had any kind of, I don't know, acting style? Did he? Like, what is his style?
He's all about authenticity, which I've...
Brando-esque? Like, does he come from the Brando?
Well, I don't know.
Naturalistic?
Probably. I don't know about studying, whether they studied through the actor studio, Jack's background in that regard. But there was a... I've mentioned many times, when he's on the stand for that soliloquy...
Right.
They
and
shot
he's in
that
tight close-up.
Yeah, but they shot that for 4 days.
Oh my God!
From every conceivable angle, and he never missed a syllable. But when the director yelled "cut," he looked like a guy who'd been stoned for 3 days. I mean, it was astonishing. I'd never seen anyone turn it on and off like that.
Right.
Before or since. That was about 70 movies ago. 6 of which are good. But so I had no formal training as an actor. I came up through stand-up comedy. And then I moved to L.A., and I started going on auditions with a fantasy of I'm going to be in movies someday. And I see Michael Keaton in Night Shift, and I say, well, that guy, that's what I want to do. By the time I get to A Few Good Men, I'd auditioned for hundreds of things, got nothing, to the point where at some point it felt like they were saying, how about anyone but you is going to get this? You know, at that point,
yes,
you're just like, this is never going to happen, ever. Then I get the call from my brother back home in the San Francisco Bay Area. He'd say, having nothing to do with show business, you know, he's a flooring company guy. Well, you know what you need to do, listening to me bitch and moan about how I can't get arrested. You know what you need to do? You need to get on that Tonight Show with Carson. Yeah. And I thought, should I tell him this? What an idiot thing that is to say. Or just let him live in that bubble.
Yeah.
Craig, you cracked the code. I hadn't figured out what I should do. You fucking idiot. I should get on the... So, yeah.
That's funny. Well, and again, nobody even understands, like, does that still exist, like getting your shot and how on a talk show? You only have 7 minutes now.
It doesn't exist in that way, but it exists in its own way. It certainly is a dividing line between touring comedians out there with credits. You've seen him on Fallon. You've seen him on Conan. You know, those things are powerful. Whereas with Carson, he would just, if he brought you to the couch, the handful of people that happened to were knighted in a moment. But for me, the greatest thing of being on a show, and someone was tweeted up, they were just an airing on Antenna TV. They regularly run the Carson show where I did and I wrote about this in my book, I did a Halloween night on The Tonight Show about 25 or more years ago. God, it must be more than that. Because 1989-ish, I'm in a wardrobe fitting, standing in front of a three-sided mirror, dressed as Cupid, which I'm going to do in this movie that no one saw called The Opposite Sex, with Courtney Cox, Ari Gross, and Julie Brown. I'm in this Cupid outfit because in the movie it's going to be a little blackout, quickie joke. And as I'm looking in these mirrors being fitted for this Cupid outfit, there weren't cell phones in '89. I had a giant cell phone that you would plug into your car with a backpack.
Yes.
Because I remember just talking on the phone as I'm standing in the mirror. And it's Jim McCauley, the Tonight Show segment producer who booked all the funny people, the gatekeeper. And he said, do you want to do the show Halloween night? And I'm looking at myself in this mirror dressed as Cupid. And I said, yes, of course I would. And here's an idea. Well, I'm in this Cupid outfit right now, Jim, being fitted for this movie. And what if Johnny introduces me, I'd already done the show 8 or 9 times at that point, just to the couch. I never did stand up on the show. I actually orchestrated that when asked to do it the first time, having been a lifelong fan and fulfilling a fantasy being on that show. But how much more it meant, like Rickles, Steve Martin, Albert Brooks, my heroes, doing their act from the couch, sitting next to the king. So I waited till that could happen. Well, they could justify bringing me out because I had a movie, right? So I'd already been on 8 or 9 times, and I just want to make that clear because this is an audacious suggestion I'm about to make on the phone. What do you think, Jim, if Johnny introduces me?
Now, my next guest, you know from film, he's also a stand-up comedian. Please welcome Kevin Pollak.
And I come out in this Cupid outfit. And I sit down, and I'm furious. And Johnny says, well,
Kevin, what's the matter?
And I said, I'll tell you what's the matter, Johnny. I was told we were all wearing costumes. You were going to wear one of Doc's jackets. Ed was going to dress as a Clydesdale. This is what I was told. Now look at me. Kills. So anyways, I'm on the phone. I break that down to Jim, and Jim says, that sounds great. That sounds great. I said, well, run it by Johnny, make sure he's cool with it. I don't want to be offensive in any way, shape, or form to the king in his home. I get a call a couple days later. Johnny's fine with it. Yeah, but what did he say? He said, if that's what Kevin wants to do, that's fine. So I do it. I come out. It kills.
Yeah.
But I've got a 6-minute segment. So that's the opening of sitting there being outraged.
Right.
And then after the laughter dies down, Johnny goes to the card and goes to the next story. Now, Kevin, I understand you went skiing recently. Is that right? And you tell the skiing story.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And it bombs. And Johnny says, you also recently had family in town. Is that right? You had some family to entertain. And I tell my family's in town story. And it bombs. And I bomb for 6 minutes.
Oh, God.
And as we go to commercial, Johnny says, we're going to go to commercial right now, but I think it's important to point out that Kevin learned an important lesson tonight. You can't follow the outfit. We'll be right back after this. And what I realized was he had said very specifically in that message through Jim McCauley, if that's what Kevin wants to do, that's fine. And I hadn't listened clearly enough to those words.
Yeah.
What does he mean if that's what Kevin wants to do? He's putting all the responsibility on me. He knew what was going to happen, that it would kill when I came out because it was a great premise.
Yeah.
But it's not a 6-minute bit.
Yeah.
It's a 90
Well,
second
it is.
bit.
Yeah, those transitions, like you said, when, Bruce Willis would come on
Yes.
Letterman and,
Chia Pet Head.
and
But Steve Martin would come on the Tonight Show and have room service delivered from the hotel.
yeah. But he has a special quality. You mentioned the people. I was gonna say, what do you think it takes to transition from being a stand-up to working in movies? Because it doesn't work with everybody, and for the comedians where it doesn't work.
It doesn't work now for famous people who are doing movies, in my opinion.
Really?
Yes.
Can you give me an example?
Do you need me to name names?
Yes. Just to.
Well, until
I
Chris
know.
Rock did some Broadway work,
Yeah.
right? And then the last movie he also directed. He
Yes,
felt a
I
little
saw
more
that
natural.
film. I saw that film.
Prior to that, in my opinion, I felt he was very stiff and it looked like a comedian trying to act.
Yes, I agree with
It's
that.
it's not
agree with that.
a seamless transition. I agree with you that every stand-up comedian enact. And I have a premise. I have a theory.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedians were the writer, the editor, the director, the choreographer, the performer.
You're an auteur.
You live and die by your own wits on a moment-by-moment basis on stage. I liken it to being a prize fighter who has a corner and people in his corner, but once he goes out in that ring, he literally lives and dies by his own wits and instincts on a moment-by-moment basis. Comedians, in that same vein, but for comedians, there's no listening. We're just talking.
Right.
We're aware of the crowd. Their enthusiasm will change your tone and temper and timing. So you're aware of the audience, but you're not listening. No one's talking. There's no conversation. Acting is just listening and reacting. That's all it is. So these two things are not the same. These two things. So the reason I went on hundreds of auditions with no acting training before I got anything is because I didn't know how to listen. I didn't know how to break down a scene. I didn't know how to be authentic. I just knew how to come into an audition room and be incredibly charming because I'm a stand-up comedian. And I would say, whose office is this? There'd be 3 or 4 people. Whose office is this? And the person would raise their hand. I'll bet we could get you a bigger office. Let's try. Who do we call? And I would just have some patter before we read the scene to try to win them over because I knew when I read the scene, it was not going to go well because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was stiff and I was awkward. And there's no naturalistic thing to it. So by the time I got to Few Good Men, I remember engaging J.T. Walsh, one of the greatest character actors in history, in his trailer and confessing. I said, I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like this is the movie where I get found out. That I got away with it in Avalon because Barry Levinson hates acting, which is fine because I didn't know how to act. But I feel like this is the movie where I get found out. And the great J.T. Walsh saved my life, I feel, because he said, you're already doing a style of acting that people go to school for their entire lives to try to perfect, and that's called less is more.
Right.
You're already doing less is more. You're trying to not get caught acting. That's what you're doing.
Right.
There's a second half to this theory and technique. If you can master the second half, then you win. And I said, well, what's the second half? He said, well, less is more, nothing is best. If you can do nothing in a scene and draw attention, well, my friend, you win. You win. So I've made a career out of doing nothing since 1992.
But that's not easy.
It's impossible. It's impossible because there's a camera and lights. There's people. And you're listening and reacting. There's a moment face-to-face with Tom Cruise where he's soaking wet, having chased Demi's character in the rain. We're sitting in his apartment. And my character has this little moment where I say, your dad would have been proud. And more importantly, I would pick you over your father any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And that is the least amount of emotional acting I've ever done in my entire life. And I think any opportunities I had came from that exact scene, that moment right there. Bruce Willis was doing Death Becomes Her on the soundstage next to us while we shot A Few Good Men at Culver Studios. He was on our set way more than his own because he was married to Demi Moore and he was loitering on our set. He insisted it was more fun. And the ADs would come over and get Bruce. They knew where he was when they couldn't find him in his trailer. He was on our set. And one of my dearest friends, Ed Olson, was visiting the day that we shot that scene of me and Tom in the apartment. Your father any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And my friend was sitting behind the director, Rob Reiner, at the video village, the monitors. And Bruce Willis was sitting in the director chair next to Rob. And during one of those takes, my friend observed Mr. Willis leaning over to Mr. Reiner and saying, he's like, oh, geez, I just blanked on the name. The great actor that was married to Kate Hepburn, and they did movies together, and he was older. And
Spencer Tracy.
Tracy.
Yes.
He leans over and says to Rob Reiner, it's like watching Spencer Tracy. He's not doing anything. This guy's not doing anything. And my friend was like a fly on the wall for that.
Yeah.
And reported it back to me, and I thought, there it is. That's what I have to do the rest of my life. I have to do nothing.
Yes. Well, which, as you said, is incredibly hard. Have you ever, I just want to ask, like, have you ever been in a movie where you get in trouble?
I've never told Bruce that, by the way.
You haven't?
We've done 5 movies together now. I've spent time with him and his family on numerous occasions. I just realized this in this moment. I've never told him
I know
that a friend of mine was
your mother, Bruce Willis.
the same person, by the way. You've never seen the two of them in a room together.
I'm going to tell my one.
Kevin's going to want to keep coming back because he's got to work through his issues, and it's doing it right here.
I love this show, by the way. Congratulations. These images I've been looking at over your shoulder. This is phenomenal.
I would, I had I won't tell it because we're running out of time, but I once had an experience at a party where something embarrassing happened to me that could have, and it clearly showed on my face that it could have been embarrassing. And Bruce Willis saw this embarrassing thing happen, and I was, of course, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be kicked out of show business. And Bruce Willis, he was doing Pulp Fiction at the time, so again, could not have been, more famous. And this weird, humiliating moment where everybody was kind of staring at me, Bruce Willis got up from his chair and said, "Hi, I'm Bruce Willis. Nice to meet you." And I almost started crying because it was such an
Holy crap.
Chivalry
exists.
He knew I was in trouble. He knew this person had said something crappy to me. And he said, have a seat.
Yeah.
And it was I was the only time, my only experience. But that's why I talk about this all the time, but I love movie stars. They're gods. They're gods to me because they are the glue that can fix, everything. But I was going to say, have you ever been in a movie where, because it's happened to me, where I'm like, I'm bad, and we're filming it right now, and I'm going to do the best I can to kind of smoke and mirrors.
Oh, sure.
But what
the movie we did, we started together, I felt that several times. I'm bad.
What movie is that?
None of your business.
I'm bad.
I'm bad.
What? I'm bad, and now we're filming it.
And now we're filming it. Thankfully, as we both predicted, no one will see this and we'll be fine.
It was such a great
scene's on the cutting room floor anyway.
It was such a great script, and I really wanted to work with Kevin too. I felt then, and I just felt like we had phenomenal chemistry in terms of
course,
rhythm. Like, I understood your rhythm, and I loved working off
We're pros,
of you,
baby.
and I thought that the script was great, and we just got into some trouble. It's too bad, but maybe we'll be on something else, another movie or another sitcom, or you'll be in my movie, or I was in.
I'll be in yours at the drop of a hat, and
But we also have, what I think the key is.
I cast you for a reason, darling.
The key to my working with Kevin, I think, is that, which is another goofy thing I love, is I'm always just about to laugh. Like, literally throughout the whole movie,
Yes.
I was always almost just about to laugh.
Yeah.
Like, even if it was a dramatic scene, I was like, there was an energy underneath.
I can't help it.
Yes. Well, Kevin Pollak, there's so much we didn't get to.
I'll have to come back.
Your
But
own
late
directing,
bloomer.
your horror story with Rip Torn, which I love. It's a very funny story in your book.
I'll come back and tell that.
The great Rip Torn.
There's a Michael Clark Duncan story that's in the book.
I once
and he passed away like 6 weeks before. First of all, I champion everyone I love in the book, right?
Yes.
But if you were a dick to me while working in movies, you're in the book too. But there's only a couple, not many.
Yeah.
And so Michael Clark Duncan is one of them, because it's well documented by people who were there while we were shooting what happened. But he passed away like 6 weeks before the books come out, and the publisher called me in a panic and said, "Did you receive the newspaper? Michael Clark Duncan died today. We think you probably want to take the story out."
Yeah.
And I thought for 4 seconds and said, "You don't get a pass for dying." Too soon? So there's a great story about him. I'll come back and tell us.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Well, your book is great, and my God, we have so many people. We haven't even gotten to the usual suspects.
Nah.
Kevin
This
Spacey.
is ridiculous.
You'll come back.
Yes,
Please come back.
Yes,
Sure.
I will. Your website is kevinpollak.tv, am I right?
Yes, it's under
I
reconstruction.
know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I put a new blog in there, so there's a little bit of that yeah.
Explains it.
It's
yeah.
under reconstruction.
Yeah. But it's still going to be at the same place when it is
Yes.
reconstructed. And we can find you on Twitter at Kevin Pollak.
Yes.
And also, you said on Instagram, yeah?
Instagram, Kevin Pollak 123.
Because the 122 of them made it in before you. Okay, great.
We were there. We invented the internet. We were doing the.
Oh, we invented Al Gore, and then he invented the internet.
They're like, what are you doing? Web series. It's not going to go anywhere.
No, exactly. Okay, you can buy Illeana's book, I Blame Dennis Hopper,
Yes.
now out on paperback at bookstores and Amazon. Also, like our page on Facebook. Check out our website, illeanaspodcast.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
for
you,
being
Tamara.
with us.
As we always end the show, your life is a movie. Your life is a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. God knows how mine's going to end. I hope it's a happy ending.
Me too.
This is our ending for today. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Thank you, Kevin Pollak. Thanks
you.
for all
See
your
you next
work.
time, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.